soldiers than you did.
What's up, y'all? Back with another interview. This time we got Mr. Jones. I've reviewed two of his series. He has been on a podcast with me and Seji on Seji's channel. And we're going to be talking about his experiences in the indie space because he's got some good product. He got some interesting product. So we're going to be interesting to hear his take on everything. How you doing, Mr. Jones?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm all right. All right, let's get into it. Let's start with your experience in the Comic Cons and convention space. Now, a lot of people underestimate or overestimate what you can achieve through conventions and so on. We want the real meaty details because you've been selling product there for some years, right?
Going on 3.
Yeah, so good enough. So tell us your experiences about selling product at conventions. How many times a year do you do it? What is the return of investment in doing so? And the cost of doing so? Go ahead.
So the first year we did it, it was just one event, and I actually didn't expect to make no money. What I wanted to do was I was doing a lot of research on how people start series and what was the real importance of doing one shots and the whole pilot chapter thing. And I started to realize the reception and the feedback is what really incentivizes if something should be made into a series. So if you were to write something, let's say you want to do a series and you got a central idea, make that in your whole series has to be explained in one chapter, and that has to be the one shot. You can look at things like Naruto. Naruto, in a sense, is the first chapter of Naruto is actually all of Naruto when it comes to the things and what he wants you to understand about what it means to be a ninja,
Right.
and stuff. So when I started doing the series that I wanted to do, before I did that, I was like, let me do it in a one-shot take and get feedback. So the first people I went to were like YouTube manga reviewers of like manga and stuff, like a little bit of smaller channels. And it was catching me off guard how shocked they were because it was like they wasn't expecting an indie story to be like that as far as quality wise, even though the quality wasn't really that great. But they wasn't expecting it to be to that magnitude. So I was getting good reception from manga reviewers. So I was like, all right. I looked up some companies that print books and came to Mixum, one of those, and I printed some books. And it was like around COVID, so once COVID was ending and things would come back normal, I started to remember like my boxing days and how we would go on the road to go to different gyms to like do tournaments. So I was like, I need to take that same mentality and the one I had with music, where you go to like different gigs, and say, I need to apply that to what I want to do to see if I can really do this seriously. Honestly, I don't like, I saw your video with that one dude and they were talking about doing the online route. I don't think people realize how seriously they want to do it until they're willing to risk going out to do it. So I was like, all right, I ain't got nothing to lose. Let me go here. We drove to Charleston, which is like 2 hours from where I'm at. Had the books. Me and my cousin was there. We was like, if we sell, we sell. We don't, we don't. Probably like a couple of minutes in, close to an hour, we sold one. And we was like, all right, we satisfied. We actually sold one. Then out of nowhere, we were just selling it. And that was our first one. And I didn't even have a tablecloth. I just put the books on the table and they were just selling. And people were like, bro, you drew that? That looks dope. And then when I was showing them the interiors and telling them the story, it was like, oh yeah, bro, I'll buy that. I buy that. And that just solidified it. It was like, yeah, I should keep doing this. So the next year, I took whatever advice I could get from people from each event that I did and just start implementing it. And then just started going from there. So the pros is you do get to talk to people and it gets you out your comfort zone and you get to realize what people prioritize when it comes to a product. The cons is understanding that doing things in an unconventional way ain't going to get you the financial results that you would if you were to do things the way most people are doing it at these events. So that comes with fan art. Usually, hey, I'm on board today. So like fan art is usually like a marketing tool that a lot of people do in events that help push their product. And I'm not gonna lie, I thought it worked because one guy I met, he does that, but he sells his original stuff at the same frame rate that I do. So when I found that out, I was like, dang, even though you pitch your original work with fan artwork, they come for the fan art and you got to persuade them to get what you do. I didn't want to go that route. I wanted to go the route of, if you're not coming for what I have, I don't want to associate with it. And eventually I started tweaking my philosophy on that because that can kind of limit you too. But it's a weird twist. Like, you got to figure out how to do things. So at first I would get frustrated because, like, while I would have some people come to my table, there'll be moments throughout the day where no one will come, or they'll come and look and walk away. And I'll be like, all right, am I not being like, upbeat enough, or am I not able to articulate it enough? And those were issues at first. And I had to learn how to articulate my way around getting people to buy things, tinkering with certain things, prioritizing one thing over the other. And the one thing I realized I had to prioritize that I didn't want to was that the artwork. People just want art. They don't really care about the book or whatever. And then I was like, it can't just be that because people buy the books. Then as far as like selling the books, I tried selling them in a way where it's like I have more than one book because I did a lot of one-shots. So I was like, why not just sell individual floppies and one-shots? That way, when people come to my table, they have more than one thing to choose from as far as like something that will interest them. So that's how I kind of worked on my pitching skills. I was able to pitch different stories to people that suit their interests and make them want to buy it. And which whenever they buy the most of, that's the one I prioritize of getting the most copies made. As far as return of investment, I will get back enough that I put in as far as like buying the table through the applications and able to buy more books. But as far as like successful, no. Because success usually comes from when you make 3 times as much as you sold it. The reason I probably wasn't successful with them, except one time, was the fact that I was underselling my work. That was my biggest critique from a lot of people, was that dude, you only selling this for $5. And I'd be like, yeah, but they're like, dude, you got people selling this and this and that over there. And it kind of can make people feel like you don't value your work. And to a degree, I felt like that. And I was like, in my opinion, selling it at a price that I feel like is reasonable was always my go-to. Like, I would look at it and be like, how much would I pay for it? Will I pay $10 for it? It depends on how it looks. So I looked at my work and was like, all right, my work, I thought it was just worth $5. And it was actually making more money back than I had to put in anyway, because it only took me $2 to make it with the company I was with, which was Comics Wellspring. So I was like, okay, selling for $5 ain't bad. But then I tried to make a magazine and sold for $15, and I didn't sell any. So I was like, finding the price range is the difficult part, but the price range that I came to was $10. People willing to spend $10 on what I had. More, to be honest. Some people spend more on that. The biggest success I had was, ironically, the first event I did it the year after that. And I guess because it was a one-day event, so many people came there to buy whatever they wanted to, and I made at least $400 some dollars. Like, if it was a 2-day event, I probably would have made my first grand off of just my own work, which I'm confident enough to say I don't think people make that much off of their own work unless they like with different companies. Usually people make back their investments through fan art or like selling stickers, like the little pins and stuff like that.
Hmm. Would you say, because one of the bros was giving me some more information about Japanese conventions and how cheap it is to print books that side, how cheap it is to host the event in general. Um, where here, or not there in the West, it's normal starting price for a completed product, a completed book, got to be that $10 and up. And you got a lot of indie dudes who charging way more than that, 18, $25 and so on for something that's not even 200 pages, right? But in Japan, something can be 180 pages, 200 pages, and it's sold under $10, right? Would you say that part of the reasons that people don't make enough is because of the cost to print your books? And of course, to make a profit, you have to sell at a high number. Would you say that's part of the reasons?
That's probably the main reason. And it's from the simple fact of like insecurity. Like a lot of people I meet at events, because I done been to 20, I done did 20 Comic Con events throughout these past few years, which probably ain't in there as a lot as most people. But the one thing I tend to get a lot from fellow artists, creators who come by my table, who got their own table, is you're the only one doing this.
What
And
do
when
you
they say the
mean?
only one doing this is everything I have at my table, because you seen me post my tables.
Yeah.
Everything there is mine. And the one thing I get from people who come to my tables is you did all of this. That kind of felt that was one of the biggest things that kind of had me insecure about what I was doing, because it's like, is it really this hard to believe that I did all this? And it's like I would show them all the different stories I did. And it was like, bro, how you have time to do all this? Like, I don't know no one who does this much and at this quality.
So what the
And
heck did they
people,
have on their table if they are so amazed?
well, I was talking about customers too, but most of the artists there, they will have like, like a one issue. Like the thing I don't think a lot of people know, which a lot of people don't know, I don't just write one story. Like I have 4 series I'm doing all at once. Like I write a lot of different stories at once. That's why I look like it's even to my own detriment. Like it might be giving me health problems one day, but I'm able to do what I can do at a fast pace, even though I work a full time job where I'm doing heavy work too. But I've always been a hard worker, so my speed and stuff, even it's weird because my quality don't really go down either,
Yeah.
except like a couple times. Like for instance, the first story I sent you where you was like the art was inconsistent. I mean, I was working at Walmart. I'm working at Walmart lifting boxes, throwing trucks, and I go home and draw that stuff.
Right.
So the inconsistency part, that's a criticism I really didn't really care about, because like the art to me, it got to a point with me with the art where it's like you said, put your work towards your favorite mangaka and see if you can live up close to that standard. That artwork, I was like, this shit look close enough to Togashi level art for what I can do at the moment. And to hear people be like, yo, your quality of work is like pro level, and I don't really have no time compared to most people. I think the only good thing is that I don't have kids, so that helps with like when I have days off, I can just focus on drawing while I'm not working. But it's the fact that I'm able to do so many stories at once. I think that made people just be in disbelief. And my dumb brain wasn't realizing, like, it takes me a minute to figure out certain things, but there's a formula to everything. And sometimes you got to create your own formula. That's where I started to learn a lot with doing cons. And it's like, I see people do fan art to sell their stuff, but their stuff, when it comes to the question you asked about pricing, it costs a lot to print books, especially in color.
Yeah.
And then you got to put on the taxes and the shipping, which the shipping would be more than it costs to make the book. Like the book could cost like Comics West Springs books would cost like what, $5 to $8 to make, depending on the size for the color. But the shipping would be $20 times that. So if you were to get 25 copies made of a book in color, that's around like a couple of $100 with the taxes on there. So that's even more of that. Now they do some incentives where they can give you discounts, but that depends on redeem points. So most people are going to want to make more than what they put in naturally. And the way you do that is charging at least twice or three times what you spent. So if someone spent like a couple $100 and it costs $8 for the book, they're going to want to charge three times that. So you will get a book that's $25 from them that they're trying to sell. And the problem with some people is you can tell by the art quality that, yeah, it looks cool, but the artwork ain't really worth putting $25 into it. And it's weird because some people who do have professional level work at like comic conventions, they charge around the same price I did. So I went to them because like I got to a point where I was sick of hearing the underselling part. So I would just go to people's tables and show my portfolio. Even people who I have like family members who be like, bro, your stuff is better than theirs. Why go talk to them? But I just need to figure out how to do it. And they would give me the same critique. They'd be like, yeah, it has potential. How much you selling it? And I was like, 5. They was like, bro, why? Sell that for like, they would tell me I should sell my stuff for 25 because they see like my artwork, they said is worth selling that for. But it's like, I look at things from a perspective of I work a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest. To me, artwork is a privilege. I look at it and will always look at it as a privilege. And it's something to take advantage of, but to understand that this won't always be here. And you should respect the people who are willing to invest money into it. So charge what you would feel like you can pay. If I feel like it's worth something, then I would charge it. But in the real world where you got bills and stuff to pay, it would be reasonable to charge it at a reasonable price. So the price that I finally settled on was 10. People are willing to spend 10. People have spent 10. In my last event, I figured out my formula and the formula worked. I went back to doing something that I stopped doing, which the reason why people didn't believe me was because I stopped using my portfolio and just started showing my artwork and stuff just to get people to come to the table. I was like, man, I'm doing all of this, making my table look cute. I want to get past them asking me questions. Just bring my portfolio back. So what I do is I had the portfolios with the display so people can look through the panel work of my original art and look through my color book portfolio too. So they don't have to ask the question, you did all this? They can see it right there. So I can get past that and they can just be like, yo, what is this? And then I can explain that. And it worked. I was able to get people to buy more. And it helped that I sold posters with it. So I would do, you buy 2 volumes for 20, you get a free poster. And majority of females really like the artwork and my color scheme. So they'll be like, oh, I really want the poster. And you made these books too? Yeah, I'll spend $20 easy. You see what I mean? Okay. So you got to kind of, the one thing you got to do when it comes to like conventions is get a businesses on how you need to market your work, how you need to pitch it, what you need to tell them, and how you can get them to buy it or incentivize them to come back. Because you also got to have proper business etiquette too, and like understand like, yeah, I know y'all just got like, when they come to your table, ask them, did they just get here? Instead of just saying hello, be like, oh, y'all just came through. How y'all liking it so far? Did y'all check out anybody else's table? Just ask basic questions like that. And if they're hesitant on what you got and they don't want to buy it at the moment, they were like, yeah, I'm going to go take a look around. Tell them, hey, after you're done taking a look around, if you want to come back and look through, I'm going to still be here or whatever. And the thing is, that actually brought them back. And the crazy thing is, when they came back, I didn't have no more books because I ran out. So they felt like they missed out. So you also got to have, I use QR codes. I don't really do business cards, but I probably should have business cards. But I would tell them, hey, I have an online store I'm going to be setting up. Just scan, follow, and follow my updates when I upload it. So
yeah, that's
it took time to get to that point.
A lot of trial and error. You definitely were in the trenches, man, to get all this information. But the big question is it worth it? Because people might say I'm just being a pessimist and all, but the reality is all of this does sound like trying to sell fish at a fish market. Like you woke up at 3 a.m. to go try and catch as many fish as you could on that day, and then 5 o'clock you setting up shop with all the fish you caught. So by sunrise, 6 a.m., everybody coming through for some fish. You already got some fish already set up, and it's you're lucky if you manage to catch a whole bunch of fish, a bucket full or so on, or you catch one big one. It sounds like ultimately Comic Cons are just one giant fish market. So the main question is it worth it? Is it worth that level of effort? Would you recommend it to people?
If you, how I say this, if you have to ask yourself that, no.
Okay.
If you have to ask yourself, is this worth doing? Instead of just doing it, realizing you're not going to be good at it, no. Because nothing comes easy. And the fishing analogy, if you go out there and fish knowing that you're going to starve the next day, you're going to do it, right? Or you got two options. Go try, starve, try again, or don't try at all and starve to death. Or you got the third option. Beg someone and do whatever they tell you to do and take whatever they give you. So it really depends on what you want to get out of like life in general. Like, do you want to just do something that doesn't work, or you aren't seeing what you want to see from it, or are you going to try something new knowing that you're not going to be good at it at first and let it, like, a lot of people don't want to be frustrated. That's my problem. If you're not willing to get frustrated and realize it ain't going to go your way all the time, don't do it. Well, you shouldn't do anything, period, in my opinion. You should just, I don't know. I just never had to, I never really had that mindset. I was just willing to do stuff like, but I know there's a lot of people who aren't willing to embarrass themselves or put themselves in a situation where they taking advantage of people. Cause like a lot of this stuff, like getting to cons, like my car stopped working sometimes. I would probably can't get there. So I had to have people take me, and I'll feel like I'm taking advantage of people. That's why when I do make money, I try to make enough to pay them back. So I actually got to a point where like I made what $300 or whatever, but that's only because I sold out, so I didn't have enough product. But I was still able to pay a bill, just like a light bill, and pay my homies for helping me. So it's like you got to go into things knowing like even if the investment ain't gonna be there, the experience is warranted too. But it ain't wrong to be upset or be frustrated. But there is a sense of freedom in doing it in a way of like doing cons and like I've always had a bias with online media where it's like you're doing something but you can't even really see the people that you're talking to, and you can kind of come off as like false hoping. But at least at a con or a convention, you're in front of people, you see them, you can talk to them, learn their names, have them follow you, and if they have questions or advice, they can always hit you up. So even if you don't make back your investment, as long as you networking and meeting people and they're inspired by what you're doing, that's way more worth it than not making money online and not even being able to talk to these people, or people just liking what you're doing and going by their business. So there's a more of investment, I think, in that than doing online stuff. Unless you're trying to start a cult following online, then you might get more of investment. But you got to be someone you either don't want to be or be someone that people want to be.
Damn. At the end of the day, um, people can answer the question for themselves. Because I know for a fact I'm not a Comic Con guy. I used to go to cons, but the cost of going would always eclipse what I would make in returns. And I was like, hell no. And then on top of that, a lot of people here are spectators. Like, whoa, bro, this is so cool. I've never seen anyone draw something like this, blah, 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 and walk right past. Like, nigga, why'd you come here then? Oh, I just want to look. It becomes a museum and a carnival. People buy snacks, but they don't buy product. But that's here. And it always depends where the people live and their circumstance and whatnot. But fair enough, they have to answer that question for themselves. But let's
Now, I
actually,
can add on to that.
Go ahead.
Like like I said, I didn't really make the investment back on how much it takes to get there, like the hotels and stuff like that. But that comes from me having a job. But like I said, like it all comes with sacrifices too. So it, it really does. It really can be one of those situations where it's like you have to be someone who's like, yo, I'm going to probably take advantage of the people that I know and that they care about me and they want to see me do stuff. And it could feel like you're taking advantage of them, but it's like at the end of the day, if you do make something out of it, and as long as you pay them back for their time worth, there's always a transactional type of thing with that. So, in my opinion, like as far as worrying about like how much money you got to put into it, yeah, that's always a factor too. But like I said, like if that's the reason, I think that's a good enough reason to probably not want to do it. But I say still give it a try. But if you feel like it's something that ain't sustainable, as long as you try, that was my point. Like try it. But if you feel like you're not gonna get the complete experience, or like if you go in there and you just don't want to like put yourself out there, like you don't want to talk to people or like actually associate with people or conversate with people. I'm not really a socialite, but it's like even I can hold a conversation with people. There's a lot of people I meet at cons who are just socially awkward. If you're one of those people, then it's like it sucks, but that's the type of environment we in where it's like you got to sell the person to a degree, and it sucks. But it's like unless you're in places like Japan where you don't really got to sell the person, the work shows itself, then I would say just don't do it.
Yeah, I'm definitely not the type. I remember some dude in the comments be like, "Well, bro, if you can't convince me why I should buy bloody hell, then I'm not gonna buy it." I'm like, bro, if you don't like what you see, I'm not gonna convince you why you should like it. Are you out of your mind? Forget it. So yeah, the West is kind of backwards when it comes to that department, but whatever. Okay, let's quickly.
Well, I wouldn't say they backwards though, but it's more or less like you got to take into account like your personality too. Like if you're gonna have that type of personality, it's going to be harder for you because I felt the same way at times too. But you got to understand too, like people have to have a reason to want to support you, and if you come with this, like I shouldn't have to do this and this and that. It is going to affect it in a negative way or a positive way, depending on how you're doing it. But you do gotta kind of have a. But yeah, what I was saying is like, if you were to go in, like going into it first, you're gonna be like frustrated when it comes to I'm trying to pitch something and someone to say, "Oh, that's nice," and walk away. But you can't keep that attitude because it's going to make the process a little more difficult. So the type of attitude I try to go into it after a while is get as much as you can out of the situation because naturally you could feel like demoralized by like no one's buying it or no one really cares. And it's easy to be like, yo, you're not even going to buy it because you will have people where you can tell they're not going to buy it. So the best thing I try to do is like, all right, if I don't feel like I'm gonna sell enough here, I should network and get to know people, or don't take it too much to heart because most of the time people aren't doing it to be mean. It's just what you got. They probably just don't vibe with. So that's one of the things I had to learn too. That's why I can kind of relate a lot to like how you feel about certain things, but over time and actually doing stuff, you start to realize they don't mess with it. It is what it is. On to the next one. I got it. But I can understand why it can get to people because it will always get to you. So I would never really be one of those who's like, it don't get me. No, it does. It's just, are you going to keep it pushing or are you just going to let it consume you?
Okay, it's
And that
definitely
comes with having like good business sense too.
it's definitely or requires a definite attitude adjustment to the circumstance that you're in. That look, man, this is how product is sold here. Either adjust the attitude or decrease your chances and so on. But at the same time, it goes along with what type of person you are. Um, I'm not gonna convince nobody, bro. I just can't do it. That's not who I am. Don't like it, don't like it. Coca-Cola don't need to convince me why I should buy their drink. If I smell something nice, the smell alone convinces me. The look alone convinces me, not the chef, you know? So that to me just doesn't make any flipping sense because we might as well really
Well,
be at the fish market in South India, bro. Convince the
well,
person why they should buy this fish instead of the other one, but that's me.
convincing someone, you really can't convince no one if they don't want to associate it with period. Like, period. The only way you can really convince someone is if they already wanted to invest in it from the get go. So, like, that's where I was coming from with. I had a lot of people, which you probably gonna find this interesting, who come to my table and I could already tell off rip they're not gonna buy it, and they didn't. But what they did do is talk and kept talking and
Why?
asked weird questions, act weird, and walked away. And ironically, I don't want to be that type of person, but it's mostly black males.
Oh yeah.
So, and it's not even me being judgmental. It's just you can tell by mannerisms how people act and how they respond to you and how they present themselves to you. So, when I say convincing, I'm talking about people who come in and you can tell there's a curiosity in eye. Like looking at someone's eyes, mannerisms, like you got to learn all that stuff. This is why, like merchants and stuff, this is the stuff they learn. Like they pay attention to social cues. You got to learn social. I had to learn social cues. I had to see what type of how this type of person is coming towards the table, what type of energy they on, how they present themselves. When I ask them a question, how they're going to respond. If they're like, understand you probably not going to convince them. Just be polite, or you even have. Don't be. I don't think you should be rude. Just be reasonable. If you're not going to be polite, be reasonable. Understand that they're just checking stuff out. If they look at your stuff and walk on by, don't let it bother you. Convince those who want to be convinced.
Yeah. Well, you heard that, guys. Convince those who want to be convinced. I ain't gonna do that. But oh well. Let's go to your personal return of investment for your inner man. Your inner man demands of you that despite lifting boxes at Walmart and so on, it requires that you produce all these different types of stories at the same time. Now, I've been saying that most people be hunchbacks. Most people watching this are hunchbacks, spectators watching real people talk about real things that they wish they could do. They either gave up or suck, and they just want to hate or just want to weasel and watch from afar. But explain to the crowd the importance of feeding your inner man, your soul, and what does it feel like for your inner man getting that return of investment that I finished this story, cool, time to move on. What is that feeling like compared to the feeling you get at the end of the month for your paycheck for, working at that job? Hey guys, if you want to see the full video and its context, consider joining my Patreon. That's where the real caffeine is at. Cheers.